Advance and be recognized, everyone, and welcome back to the Sitrep podcast, your forward operations space for all things military and historical wargaming. I am your host, Risky Jim, and today we're back to finish up our tabletop scenario, recreating the Battle of Nasiriyah. The system we're going to be using is 7 Days to the River Rhine by Great Escape Games. This scenario was played about a month ago in early October at Das Krieg House, home of the South Florida Miniatures Gaming Club. We've got John playing the Marines of Task Force Tarawa, and Mark Ritchie once again being a great sport and playing the Iraqis of the 6th Armored Division and the 11th Infantry Divisions. The Battle of Nasiriyah was one of the opening engagements in Operation Iraqi Freedom, the second war with Iraq that started in March of 2003. As the American invasion got underway, the mid-sized city of Nasiriyah quickly became one of the key opening objectives, because it was a vital road junction and also contained several bridges over the Euphrates River and the Saddam Canal. Now, I covered all the particulars of the Battle of Nasiriyah in part 1 of this episode. There's a link to part 1 in the description of this video. Check it out if you're interested in reviewing that material. But for now, let's just say that a U.S. Army unit, the 507th Maintenance Company out of Fort Bliss, Texas, has gotten lost and wandered into the operational area of some unexpectedly powerful Iraqi forces. Pinned down in what was already being called Ambush Alley through El Murtada Street along the eastern side of Nasiriyah, the 507th was in serious trouble and had already taken significant casualties. Task Force Tarawa, a Marine battle group formed out of elements of the 2nd Regimental Combat Team, got the orders to help the 507th and seize those key bridges in eastern Nasiriyah. Marine units on our table are very powerful compared to their Iraqi counterparts, including M1A1 Abrams main battle tanks of Able Company 8th Marine Tank Battalion. However, the Iraqis do have the advantages of numbers, they hold good defensive positions in built-up urban terrain, and they have access to new experimental house rules I'm trying out for IEDs, or Improvised Explosive Devices, that were so infamous in the Iraq War. Probably the biggest Iraqi advantages, though, are the very steep victory conditions the Marines are up against. Put simply, they have to get at least a third of their force clear off the north end of the table, and through a pretty narrow corridor, I might add, all by the end of turn 5, and that's not a lot of time in this system. Making matters worse, the Marines also have to keep at least a third of their force operational on the table. This is to secure routes of supply, communication, and possible withdrawal for the 507th. In fact, it's even worse than that, because a lot of the Marine breakpoints come in the form of air power, which don't count toward these ground control requirements. So far, John definitely has the firepower part of the equation nailed down, systematically leveling Iraqi resistance points long before Mark can effectively respond. But we're already mostly through turn 2, and John has barely started toward that northern breakthrough zone. Simply put, he's running out of time. Mark is also building up a pretty significant counterattack against the Marine left wing, which, to his credit, John is about to counter with some airstrikes, some A-10 Thunderbolt IIs of the Pennsylvania Air National Guard. So how about we head over to the footage and we see how the rest of our Battle of Nasiriyah finishes up. Okay, the first thing we have to do for our house rules airstrikes is to make sure that this A-10 does not hit any friendly targets. Historically, there was some blue on blue, unfortunately. So what John has to do here is to avoid rolling a 1. Okay, he rolled a 7, so we're going to be attacking in a 12-inch strafe line. This PTR-60, this T-55, and that Type 69 QM you see there in the back. Okay, so first we do our rolls to hit. Now, clearly these are all house rules for how we handle fixed-wing airstrikes, but the A-10 gets to attack everything within a 12-inch strafe line with its 30mm autocannon. So yes, that's an autocannon, so John gets to roll 2 dice. That's a hit on the PTR-60. Next, he's going to roll on the T-55. Again, autocannons, you get to roll twice and use the best result. And now for the Type 69, he actually misses with a pair of 1s. Look at that, even A-10s miss once in a while. So there's a hit, and the luckiest Chinese tank ever built. Okay, so now we go into penetration. The penetration gun value on that A-10 is a 6. So what's going to happen is John is going to roll a D10 for each hit, add 6 to the result, and try to beat the roof armor of each target. Now the BTR-60 only has a roof armor of 6. We handle roof armor as the flank armor -2. So unless he rolls a 0 on a D10, yeah, that BTR-60 is automatically destroyed. Okay, now we move on to the T-55. His roof armor is a little tougher. It's a 10. And again, we are adding a 6 to a D10. Holy crap, maximum roll. So that is going to be a 10 plus 6 is 16. That hella defeats that T-55's roof armor. That tank is burning as well. And that is the second and last airstrike available to the A-10 Thunderbolt. He is now returning to base. Okay, over to the Iraqis now, and after several failed activations and some poor rolls to hit, Mark finally scores a hit and destroys that Humvee. Now, sadly for the Marines, that is the Humvee that is carrying the tow launcher on it, but with so many Iraqi tanks already burning, frankly, I don't think the Marines are going to have too much trouble with Iraqi tanks. What they are going to have trouble with is Iraqi artillery. So the Iraqis do have 3 off-board fire missions, and we do have house rules for those as well. Mark has now selected his aiming point, and we roll to see if he hits. Whoa, with a 10, that was a beautiful shot. Alright, so the Iraqis catch a break for once. That artillery lands right where it's supposed to, so it's going to affect everything within 3 inches of the impact point. Okay, so the first thing that happens is everything within those 3 inches takes an automatic morale token. So you see all those white tokens there for all those Marine units. And then they roll to hit individual targets within there. So it missed the LAV anti-tank launcher, it missed that second LAV up there on the top of your screen, bounced off the Abrams, but it did knock out that AAV. And we rolled to see if it exploded. It did not explode, and so the Marines were able to bail out of the AAV, albeit with maximum morale tokens. Unfortunately then, Mark then calls in a second artillery mission on the exact same spot. He hits again. So what winds up happening is, because those 2 Marine squads had bailed out of the wrecked AAV with maximum morale tokens, and then they take that 1 additional morale token per our house rules for artillery, they are now beyond their morale rating, and thus they are considered destroyed units. So he actually knocked out 2 squads of Marine infantry there. He has also inflicted a bunch of extra morale tokens on all these Marine vehicles, so yeah, that's not good. A pretty devastating attack from Mark with his Iraqi artillery. It was really his one decent attack, and all credit to Mark, he made the most of it. Alright, now Iraqi tanks are smashing through all my terrain, and Mark is doing what Mark does best, and that's tearing up my tables. I'm just kidding there, but a joke we like to share around the club is Mark loves to attrite my terrain, as he puts it. Alright, so again, these 2 Type 69 QMs, these are Iraqi tanks built in China, are advancing into the central square, and yeah, they are now in a position to open fire into the Marine left, which is staggered a little bit after that Iraqi artillery, I am not gonna lie. So you can see this line of sight that they are drawing on the Abrams, and they will hit the flank of the Abrams. However, John has managed to activate that Abrams with a successful reaction roll. You see there where he's already put his 3rd activation token on that Abrams, so he will get a chance now to shoot. He needs to roll a 4+, but it's going to be a 6+ because this is his 3rd activation for the turn. And with the 1, he is going to miss. Okay, so the Marines did react, but their shot has missed. Fortunately for the Marines, when that Type 69 QM does take its originally intended shot, it whiffs as well. So, great, we've got tanks rolling up on each other, and neither side can hit the broadside of a barn. Not so with that BTR-60 you see there on the right-hand side of your screen. He is firing his 14.5mm machine gun, basically a 60 caliber, I'm being very rough there, and scores a hit on that LAV-25. We give those kind of weapons a 2 in penetration. He rolled a 9 on his penetration roll, that equals 11, and that does beat the flank armor of that LAV-25. So the Marines do lose another vehicle there to a heavy machine gun of all things. But yeah, chaos of war, things do happen. And that's going to wrap up turn 2. beginning turn 3, and the first thing John's going to do is activate his command team to use the battle group morale test rule. And he rolls a d6 and gets a 6, the best possible result. Absolutely beautiful. That means he gets to remove all the morale tokens from a given unit. Clearly John's going to pick this Marine tank platoon leader there, and that is a key result, because the only way the Iraqis can really knock out one of these Abrams is to maximum stack them on morale tokens. And Mark was over halfway there on that M1, but not anymore. We have a bona fide tank duel in progress as those two M1 Abrams declare shots on this T-55 and that Type 69 QM you see further back there in the square. Now Mark is going to try to react and shoot first. He has to roll a d6 and get 3 up to react against a vehicle. Type 69 succeeds with a 4, and for the T-55 he also succeeds with a 4. Okay, so the Iraqis will shoot first. We give the Type 69 a 5 up to hit, and the T-55 a 6 up to hit, but he doesn't have thermal sights and he's shooting through some intervening terrain. He actually goes to a 7 up to hit. Now I apologize, I don't get the die rolls on camera here, but both tanks do hit. So the penetration for the T-55, I'll be honest, isn't great, because he only gets to add 8 to a D10. The M1's armor is 19. He literally can't penetrate no matter what he rolls. The Type 69, however, gets to add 9 to a D10. So it's theoretically possible. Unfortunately, the M1 has special armor, so Mark has to roll twice and use the worst result. But because it was actually possible, he still gets the morale token. Okay, the Marines now return fire. That first Abrams needs a 5 up to hit. He barely gets it, and the reason he needs a 5 up instead of a 4 up is he is carrying that morale token from that first Iraqi hit. Now we do penetration. He gets to add 11 to his 6. That's going to be 17. That easily defeats the front armor of the Type 69 QM. That was the dangerous Iraqi tank, and he's now on fire. On to the second Marine battle tank. That's going to be the platoon leader there. He is going to go ahead and fire. He only needs a 4 up because he's not carrying that morale token. Easily scores the hit, adds 11 now to his D10 penetration roll. Oh my god, a modified 20. Okay, long story short, take your first shot. That T-55 is smoked. Here in the Iraqi center, that LAV-25 is going to try and suppress some Iraqi infantry in a building. It's an autocannon, he gets to roll twice, so he has definitely scored a hit. Now he's trying to convert for some extra damage. He needs a 5 or a 6 on a d6. Okay, he gets the extra level of damage. He's now done 2 levels of damage. That team already had 3. It is now past its morale limit. That Iraqi team is destroyed. The Marines are now bringing in their helicopter gunship support. It's an AH-1W Super Cobra. And he has spent 1 activation token on there, so he gets to bring it on within 12 inches of his table edge. Now, that will invite some Iraqi counterfire from the Shilka self-propelled anti-aircraft gun. Mark has made his reaction roll, but does miss with the shot. Okay, now that Super Cobra is clear to engage. And you know what? He is going to put his first Hellfire missile into that Shilka to suppress any more Iraqi air defense. Okay, that Hellfire anti-tank guided missile hits on a 3 up. With our house rules, we only allow these helicopters to fire those weapons twice in a game, but it hits on a 3 up, so John rolls an 8. That's going to be an easy hit. Now we're going to roll penetration. It's 12H penetration, so basically a D10 plus 12. Oh wow, that's a modified 18. Yeah, long story short, take your second shot. Pieces of that Shilka are going to be raining down until the middle of next week. John immediately brings back the Cobra for a second activation. You see the second blue poker check there on his base, and there is his activation roll. He needed to beat a 1, easily beats it with a 5. Because, yeah, the Manpads team has been destroyed, the Shilka's been destroyed, the skies are clear for Marine air power. They might as well make the most of it now. He chooses that as his engagement point, and for his target, John picks that remaining Type 69 QM there in the square. Well chosen, because those are definitely the most dangerous Iraqi tanks. Again, the Maverick needs a 3 up to hit. He easily hits with an 8, and now to penetrate, John rolls a D10 and adds 12 to the result. Oh my god, maximum result with a 10. Long story short, take your third shot. That is the end of that Type 69, and also the end of that Cobra's missiles, but that's okay. He still has chain guns and rockets on board. Mark is trying to fight back with a couple of his anti-tank guided missile teams, but he's been getting a lot of bad rolls, both to activate and also to hit. But he finally catches a break, puts a missile into the side of that Humvee, and yeah, that is definitely the end of that Humvee. Now he's engaging with another of his missile teams. He needs a 6 up to hit, but rolls a 5, so that's a miss. Meanwhile, this other Humvee has drawn close enough to confirm this possible location for an improvised explosive device. These are our house rules for IEDs. A vehicle can only confirm this on a 5 up. He gets a 6, so now we flip it over. Turns out that is a dummy position. So yeah, looks like this corridor here looks pretty clear, at least for IEDs. Back here in the Iraqi center, this Marine combined anti-armor team has now identified a real, live, improvised explosive device. So it has been identified and located, and we're at the end of turn 3, but going into turn 4, the Marines can engage that and pre-detonate it with some targeted gunfire. Beginning of Marine turn 4, that Abrams and that LAV, between the two of them, have engaged this Iraqi rifle team that was trying to relocate, and between the two of them have inflicted a total of 5 morale levels of damage. The Iraqi rifle team only has a morale of 4, so that is the end of that team. And that pushes the Iraqi army over their breakpoint. Okay, so the Iraqis have now quit the field, and they're all more or less running away. But we still have to clear all these IEDs that are blocking the advance of Marine vehicles. So that combined anti-armor team tries to identify that position, succeeds with a 6, we flip the counter, and that's a dummy. Alright, but we still have to engage and destroy that real confirmed IED that is planted in the middle of that road there. Alright, so now I have to pick what unit I want to try to engage with first. The Marines are going to try with the combined anti-armor team first, so they do reactivate. They are considered an explosive unit because they have obviously smalls or AT-4s, something like that. They're going to try to put a warhead into that street and set off that IED. They need a 3 up on a D6. And they only get a 1, so they actually do fail. Right, that really stinks. Okay, so yeah, they didn't get the 3+. So the autocannon on the nearby LAV has a slightly worse chance because it's not really an explosive weapon. So he's going to try and roll, and again, he's looking for a 4 up. Okay, the LAV does succeed. Awesome. So the IED explodes. It affects everything within 3 inches. There's nothing really within 3 inches, except Mark is quick to remind me. Terrain. Mark loves tearing up the terrain on my tables. But anyway, that IED is cleared. So now that the Iraqis have officially broken, the question on the table is, did the Marines do that fast enough? And the only way to really know is to see if they can get at least 40 breakpoints off the north end of the table by the end of turn 5. And we're already partway through turn 4. The Marines are going to start off by trying to reactivate that Abrams, and they barely succeed with a 2, but they did succeed. Then they're going to activate these 2 Abrams here. Notice they are already carried 2 activation tokens. We're sort of speed running the game here, so the Marines are going to go ahead and pre-roll for those second activations. They both succeeded. So with 24 inches being their maximum road movement rate, if they aren't shooting, they're not shooting, they're going to get to move 48 inches with the activation tokens they have currently on the table. So there is going to be the first 12-inch stretch. There is 24 inches, that's their first activation. Moving on to their second activation, there's 36 inches, all on road. And there they are at the end of 48 inches. So they roughly wind up there in the center of that square. There's the third Abrams that was stalled behind that IED before. He only had to reactivate once, but he started off much closer. So that's where those 3 tanks end up at the end of turn 4. But combined together, they're only worth 33 points. That's not enough for the Marines to win the game. The Marines have to move up some additional units in order to succeed in their mission. Alright, so here are the Americans at the end of turn 4. So the rest of this stuff is going to remain on the table because, again, their victory conditions do require them to keep 40 breakpoints on the table as well in order to keep open that route of communication and supply. So those Abrams are worth a total of 33 points, the AAV is worth 2, and those rifle teams are 5 points apiece. Again, with our house rules, AAVs get to carry 2 rifle teams. If that force makes it, the Marines win. Starting off on turn 5, the first thing the Marines are going to do is activate those 3 Abrams. They move 24 inches on a road, And the AAV is going to activate right behind them. So there are the Marines at the end of their first activation. Now the Marines have to start reactivating. They have to beat a 1, and we start off with 2 failures. Alright, we'll see if the third Abrams can make it. He succeeds with a 6. So that's 1 Abrams off the table, 11 points and counting. Alright, now these Abrams are going to have to reactivate. They each have 2 activation tokens on them. So now to reactivate, they have to beat a 2 on a d6. So the first one does succeed with a 4. You can barely see it there under that awning. And the second one fails. Alright, so now the Marines have 2 tanks off the table, 22 points. But the Marines are running out of activations, and as you continue to attempt to reactivate, the difficulty starts to climb. Believe it or not, the Marines could lose this now. Alright, that third tank does make it, so now the Marines are at 33 points. Oh man, now we just have to get that AAV off of there. So he barely makes his second activation with a 2. Mark's going to go ahead and measure that for us, 20 inches forward. Not as fast as an Abrams. So yeah, he didn't quite make it either. Alright, so now that AAV has to reactivate. He has to beat a 2 on a d6 in order to scoot off the table. So let's get our d6 out. Another failure. Okay, the Marines have now used up 9 out of their available 13 activations, but finally they make it. How close was that? That was close. Alright, so we have 3 Abrams, that is a total of 33, plus the AAV, 2 rifle teams. That is a total of 45 points off the table by the end of turn 5. Barely. The Marines technically win. And that's going to wrap up our recreation of the Battle of Nasiriyah. Of course, this is only the opening engagement in Nasiriyah. This battle would continue for, if memory serves, at least a week, and it expands through the entire city. Clearly, this is only a very small sliver of the opening of the engagement. So, many thanks to John for playing the Marines. Great job. Thanks once again to Mark for being a great sport and agreeing to play the Iraqis. That's never really fun in these Gulf War and Iraq War games. But let's please remember to give Mark his due. He actually came damn close to winning this game on a number of occasions. If that anti-aircraft gunfire roll had been just 1 number higher against the A-10, he could have won there. Or if John hadn't rolled that 6 on his battle group morale test and rallied that Abrams, or if the Marines didn't manage to get off the table in time, and they damn near missed that as well. But this is how the game turned out. I hope you guys enjoyed it as much as we did putting it together for you. And there we have it, folks. Once the Iraqis hit their breakpoint and their forces quit the field, the Marines still had to haul the proverbial ass in order to get at least 40 breakpoints off the north end of Al-Murtada Street in time. As I hope you saw in the footage, it came damn close, almost to the very last roll. And to be honest, that's just how you have to run a lot of these Gulf War and Iraq War and really any modern era war game. Clearly, the American or coalition forces are going to win the battle. I mean, come on, it's not even in doubt. But in order to win the game, the American or coalition forces have to accomplish a very tough mission against some pretty steep victory conditions. Often, the Iraqi player can win the game just by continuing to exist, and even then, sometimes just for a limited amount of time. And that's where we're going to leave it for now, folks. Thanks very much for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed this content. Please remember to hit that notification bell. Also, please consider joining the Sitrep Podcast Discord. There is an auto-accept invitation link to our Discord in the description of this video. Join our community, see what everybody's up to, and best of all, show us what's happening on your hobby table. But for now, this is Risky Jim with the Sitrep Podcast. We are rounds complete for another episode. And as always, Tango Mike for watching.